Okay, so a brief explanation. The name of my YouTube channel is Nectar Garden. It may seem kind of strange that my first video was about making charcoal. However, all this ties together. And in a future video, I will talk more about what the Nectar Garden is and what it all means and what I'm trying to do. But here today, we have a situation. So, off to my left is actually a swarm of honeybees. Now, this is a very small swarm, and I believe that it is an after swarm because a larger swarm came out earlier from one of these hives over behind me to my right. I'm pretty sure it came from the one in the middle because the one in the middle had bearding bees, and now it looks more or less normal. And typically you will not see bearding bees in cooler weather, which is what we have had here for this spring. So I believe that that colony split into at least two swarms. One of them is occupying other bee boxes that I have at a different location. And this little after swarm is set up right here. Now, because this swarm is so small, I'm going to try to get it to go into what is called a nuke box or maybe a nuck box, but I think beekeepers say nuke. So this only has 5 frames, and hopefully it'll more or less match up with the population of this little after swarm here. So what I have in my hand now is a commercial product called Swarm Commander. So what this is basically a pheromone that tells the bees to come to that spot and to move into this area. So hopefully, if I take this product here, shoot the front entrance to this nuke box, it will cause these bees to occupy this box and make it their home. And then I'll lift it further up off the ground and eventually get it set up with more frames. But for the time being, I'm really just trying to get them in there. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to spray it. Now, I do not expect the bees to immediately move in. There may not be any reaction whatsoever from this little swarm here, but there may be. So that's why I got the safety glasses on. I know they're very fashionable, and some of you that know me may recognize what they are. But I'm going to hit this thing right now, and then we're going to take a little bit of video and see if we get any type of reaction. But if it does happen, it'll probably happen tomorrow. Anyway, here I go. So now I'm going to get out of the way. Just 2 little blasts to the front is really all that's called for. Now, it's possible that this stuff may pull in a swarm from a different area. It may draw some curiosity from the other hives over here. So it looks like we're not getting too much of a reaction. You'd almost expect to see at least a couple of scout bees come down, but maybe they haven't really got a whiff of it yet. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. I think we're going to walk over and take a look at the other colony that was just recently occupied by the main swarm that came out of one of these boxes. So the newly occupied bee boxes that I was talking about earlier are these right here. This is a colony that died out over the winter. So earlier in the spring, because of how light the nectar flow was, they were robbing this out, the bees from the other area and probably other bees besides that. So they knew where this box was because they had been into it for so much time. And then when they actually generated their population up to the point where they needed a place to go, to split, to swarm, they came here. Now the reason why I know that this box has actually been moved into rather than is just being robbed out is because these bees are, number one, fanning the entrance. And there's no reason to fan it unless they're actually living there. That's a behavior that they do in their own homes rather than in places where they're robbing honey out from a previous colony. And the other way that I know is that I can see that they're bringing in pollen on their back legs. The pollen is the feed for the brood. So the pollen indicates fresh eggs, babies, a laying queen. So everything that's needed is probably here. And the other thing strange about this box is that I saw drones coming in here, a drone. And typically drones will not move with a swarm, at least not so far as I know. So maybe that happened, or maybe the drone just kind of begged its way in from a different colony, which they're known to do. But this box here, I'm about 95% sure is a standard operating, functioning colony. You see another one go in with pollen, so they're doing it. Now this box over here, the one furthest to my right, is also starting to show indications that it may be occupied. So maybe that's another after swarm that came from the original colony. Or sometimes what happens is if you got two boxes side by side, the swarm will come in and some of them will get confused as to where the new home is. So they might move into the box next door to it and then eventually work their way over into one box. Or maybe they're just continuing robbing that box out. Kind of hard to tell at this point. But this box, I'm quite sure, is actually the old queen and half the bees from the center colony in the other area. So they're rocking and rolling. Now this spring has been kind of messed up over here. It's been cold and dry, so the nectar flow has been really light. But now all of a sudden it got warm, and a lot of the fruit trees, the wild apples and things like that are actually in flower. And things that should have been in flower in sequence, because everything happened so late, they're kind of flowering right together. So the nectar flow is pretty strong right now. We have dry weather coming up, dry warm weather, so that's going to keep pushing in. All this brush that's growing around here, that's autumn olive. It's about 3 or 4 days from blooming, so the nectar flow is just going to explode. So that'll cause them to increase their population even quicker, and I wouldn't be surprised to get more swarms over the next couple days, maybe from my own bees or from feral bees or somebody else's bees that might be around here. But things are moving and shaking out here in Claybanks.